Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Keeneland and Keeneland Select. As in the fall, they've got the Keeneland Turf Pick 3 back. It's been handling well. Last 3 turf races of the day offered daily. Tremendous quality in this stake schedule overall on the meet. 15 stakes worth $7.7 million. Great allowance races as well. This is an action-packed meet, folks. And new Keeneland Select accounts get to receive a special $100 back after they wager $200 on Keeneland Racing this April. Wager a total of $300 in the first 30 days and earn another $100 back with the standard sign-up bonus. So $300 on the Keeneland Spring Meet, $200 back for new accounts. Just make sure you use the promo code at sign-up, ITM22. Go to KeenelandSelect.com and use that promo code ITM22. Next up on the show, we're going to dive into the races on Saturday. We have with us from our first segment still Philip Shelton from Medallion Racing, TaylorMade. Philip, how are things?
Yeah, great, Pete. Thanks for having me.
And we also have a man who's been extremely busy over at InTheMoneyPodcast.com. He's been doing a great job covering the Triple Crown for us in a creative and interesting way. If you haven't seen the Triple Crown content over at InTheMoneyPodcast.com, go over there. You'll see it under where the shows are in the blog area, or you can search for his name. He is Eric Solomon. Eric, what's going on?
Oh, not much. Doing well, Peter.
You feeling good about the way the site's coming together with all this Triple Crown coverage we've been doing?
I think it's been fantastic. Everything's really kind of coming together very nicely.
Excellent. We encourage folks to check that out over at InTheMoneyPodcast.com. Put in a quick plug for our newsletter as well, which is the best way to keep track of all the content going on, written and audio and visual. If you just go to InTheMoneyPodcast.com/email, you can sign up for that for free and get that content delivered right into your email box. Let's talk about this Pick 5 at Keeneland on Saturday, final day of the week with Easter being Sunday. So we've got to get our fill of Keeneland on Saturday. And this is a fun sequence with a few stakes races in. It kicks off in race number 7 with a 4 and up allowance race going 7 furlongs on the dirt. Eric Solomon, let's start with you and your thoughts on this one. What's going to be your approach as we kick off the late Pick 5?
All right. I looked at this race. I think Injunction's pretty good, who's the morning line favorite at 2-1. I ended up making a Candy Tycoon my top pick, though, the 4-horse. I like this horse a couple starts back. Since this horse has been claimed by Norm Cassie, I like what this horse has done. I thought it had a really good race 3 starts ago, going a flat 1-turn mile at this level at Churchill. Beat a nice field that day back in November. And since then, one decent race at Oaklawn, and then the last race, kind of a toss for me, had a tough post. That was a decent field. Market Analysis was the winner that day. Second place horse Goalie came back to win a nice race also in February at Oaklawn. So Cassie gives him a little bit of time off, cuts him back to 1 turn. I think he considered a real nice trip in this race with Luis Saez. And then, like I said, Injunction coming out of the Gulfstream Mile. How deep was that race with Speaker's Corner coming back to win the Carter? Fearless was a next out stakes winner out of that race as well. 2 really good races, including one here at Keeneland last year, a dominating win to break the maiden in October. Followed that up with another really strong performance winning at Churchill at the end of the meet. That was another good non-winners of 1 other than allowance there. Then the other horse that I'm looking at is trying to find a price horse in this race. I looked at the 9, Basquiat. Second off a layoff, moved into Lisa Lewis's barn. This horse was mostly a turf horse back in 2020, 1 start in 2021. Dirt races back in 2020, met 1 on debut at the 7 furlong distance, met a really tough field back at Belmont in second career start. Tap It to Win won that race, but also Mystic Guide and Country Grammar came out of that race. Ran into Happy Saver when going 2 turns, going a 1.8 miles at Saratoga. So I think certainly can get over the dirt. I liked the race last time out again at Tampa with clearing the non-winners of one condition. It's a big step up in class, but I think in a race where could try to find a price, I think he's not the worst choice here.
No, and Basquiat is a pretty strong finisher relative to the group, and there is a lot of pace. Chance maybe they'll come back in this spot. Philip, let's bring you in for your thoughts on how we're going to light this candle in the late pick 5.
Yeah, I would be pretty similar. I liked Candy Tycoon. I thought, there's some speed drawn directly outside of him, maybe just sits just behind them. I kind of defaulted, like what I would say, just from a pick 5 perspective. I have stronger opinions later, so I'm not going to get super brave in here. I mean, I think Injunction is definitely the horse to beat. Fearless came back at 1-5 and won his next start in Speaker's Corner. In a normal year, you'd be thinking, hey, he's going to be favored for the Met Mile, except you have 2 monsters who could be just absolute machines sitting in the wings, which could, that could make that an unbelievable race later this year's. I kind of liked Hear My Song. This horse has gotten pretty good on the synthetic, but the dirt races weren't bad before. And I really just wanted somebody that is going to be finishing, isn't, maybe going to sit a little bit further off what could be pace. Wednesday at Keeneland, it was a conveyor belt. Yesterday, it played more fair. I think horses that, could make an outside run and you would be fine. So I like that horse. What I'm hoping is that the 5-1 is, if he's 5-1, I wouldn't love to bet him heads up, but I think he could be. I think just lower level connections, you're probably going to get some odds floating, and I kind of landed there. But again, not gonna get super aggressive in the first leg.
4, 6, and 8. It sounds like for Philip, Eric's got it 4, 6, 9. So plenty of agreement as we move to the first of our 3 stakes on the Saturday card. We're going 5.5 furlongs on the turf for 3 and up fillies and mares in the Giants Causeway Stakes. Philip, will keep it with you.
I mean, this is what Keeneland is right here. You get an Ascot winner coming back. You've got the Fairgrounds form's really good. You got some speed from Gulfstream. You have a California shipper. It's just, there's a lot of different ways to go. I'm kind of hoping, I've been wanting to bet Jouster and a cutback for her whole career. I just felt like, hey, she just, hasn't worked really good as a 2-year-old. Now, I guess the question I would have is just, is she as good? There's some serious sprinting fillies in here. I ended up landing on Change of Control, and I hope I can get somewhere in 4 or 5-1. I just thought last time she didn't break. Race was dominated, on or near the early lead. There is some speed in here. And what I like is she can handle some given the ground. It's going to be 70 today, but there's supposed to be more rain overnight. The course is going to definitely be good at best tomorrow, I would think. And I just think she could sit the right trip. She can handle soft ground, and she likes Keeneland. So that, and really this would be a stronger opinion. I think when I try to think about sequences like this, there's a lot of different ways to go. And if I just figure, all right, I could go bet 100 to win on her or 200 to win, I might just single her in a pick 5, have a couple different tickets, and just try to get alive to horses later on. And a lot of people are going to be spreading in here.
It's a smart approach, I think, and I'm with you on Change of Control being the really interesting horse in here. Has to reverse that form with LZ, but I think has an opportunity to do so, especially when you consider that last time Change of Control unprepared at the start, and now a better draw than LZ, who's a contender, but is going to have to use that speed. We'll see if she's maybe left vulnerable late to one who could maybe save some ground like Change of Control. We'll see how it plays out, but I also like your approach in terms of your multi-race strategy there as well. Eric, let's bring you back, and we've got 2 votes for Change of Control. Can we make it a chorus?
Yes. I everything Philip said, I've kind of written down on my notes here about Change of Control. And to me, and kind of, similar strategy, I am squarely against LZ. I'm not going to be using her at all today. When you take a look at her races, she is one half of her starts. So 18 starts, 9 races. Of those 9 races, 5 of them came at the fairgrounds. So when you take her out of the fairground, and she was second in 2 others in close races there. When she leaves New Orleans, she's just not the same horse. She's, on the turf, I think 7 starts outside of New Orleans, only 2 wins, 1 second. Speed figures are much more ordinary. Speed horses struggled yesterday on this Keeneland turf course. I mean, not a huge sample, but I think she's going to be passed late. So I'm not going to be using her at all. And I'm not really high on Wesley Ward's horse, Campanile, either. Hasn't won since winning in France back in 2020. A couple of starts here, just hasn't looked like the same horse that she was back when she was a 2-year-old. So change of control, definitely for me. I thought AG Indy on the outside was an interesting horse to possibly add in here. Moved into the Todd Pletcher barn, tried the dirt, met just one time, who came back to win the Madison last week. So that's a total toss for me. Left California in pretty good form. 3 out of 4 wins and a narrow loss in her last 4 starts and turf sprints out there. If she can handle a course with a little bit of a give, that's going to be a definite question mark. So I definitely want at least 10-1 or better on her. But I think she's an interesting horse there from the far outside. Another horse I put up on there, Going Good, I thought might be a good horse to use here too. Went off form a little bit at the Saratoga meet, but had a really nice progression of races up to that point. Nice race, narrow miss to Toby's Heart here last year in the Limestone Turf Sprint. Came back. I thought it was a good second for her first start as a 4-year-old, first start of the year at the fairgrounds. And she gets Tyler Gaffleone, who rides as well as anybody here. So 5 on top, and then the 11. I put the 11 on the A line, Going Good there. And then my B horse as number 14, AG Indy.
All right, I just have one issue with what you said, and we'll get back to Campanile for a minute. You say hadn't had a win since 2020. My bank account says different, Eric. We were put up in the Commonwealth Cup at Ascot.
You are correct. You are correct. Has not finished first.
I can't argue with that.
Hey, if that race was run in New York, the hurting that happened probably wouldn't have been DQ'd. So it doesn't matter. At Ascot, if they came across 18 paths, it felt like, but New York, they would have let it go.
That was actually my biggest bet of the Ascot meeting, was that DQ would happen. I just couldn't see how they weren't going to, and they nearly didn't the way they over there. But I got the money.
It's always interesting just talking to people in Europe about it, and it's like in America, you just think, well, there's no way this horse could stay up, right? It was the nose finish. They came across, so there was bumping. Like everything about it made you think it was going to be a DQ, but it's just a different beast. But in this case, this was exactly where the rules were applied appropriately. You really have to make the strong case she was going to win, but I think the bumping happened at the time where it'd be hard to not make that case.
For the record, I will be saving with Campanile in the spot, though change of control, definitely the bigger fancy for me. Let's move on to race number 9, the Grade 3 Lexington Stakes for these 3-year-old colts. Last chance to accrue points for this year's Kentucky Derby. Eric, who's your idea of the winner?
And I thought this race was, to me, the hardest race in the sequence. I ended up with Call Me Midnight. I like those 2 races at the fairgrounds, even though I'm not sure this horse wanted to go the mile and 3/16. It's a Midnight Loot out of a first defense mare. So I'm wondering if that mile and a 16th is going to be about, where he runs his best races. I think could get, it's hard to tell, this could, doesn't look like there's going to be a huge, there's going to be a ton of speed. And the outside post is going to be a little bit of a challenge here, but I just think it's coming out of better races than a lot of these horses. And it's kind of where I ended up with there. In Due Time is the other horse that I'm going to put on the A line. From a visual standpoint, I thought the last 2 races were really good. He was absolutely loaded in the Fountain of Youth, and, Paco Lopez kind of does what Paco Lopez does sometimes, and just kind of running up on heels. Tried to bully his way out, ended up clipping heels. I'm not sure how he didn't get disqualified there, but it is what it is. Kelly Breen, very loyal, still sticking with him here. But draws well. I think we'll be able to sit a little bit closer because I don't think there is going to be as much pace on here. So I think could get the good trip. A couple other horses on the B line. I think Strava's a little bit interesting at a big number here. You look at that allowance race at the fairgrounds on the Risen Star undercard. Looks a lot better now when you look at Cyberknife winning the Arkansas Derby off of that race. His first start at 2 turns, and I don't think it was a bad effort. Got a little bit tired late. I think could improve here after pairing those first 2 buyers for the start of the year. Again, Tyler Gaffleone rides there. 20-1, I think, it's about the price I'd want on that horse, but I think worth a shot here. Morning line favorite, Tawny Port. I'm not really sold on this horse. I'll probably save with this one on the C line, but again, that was the one start beaten. The Risen Star, obviously, as good of a prep race as there's been this season. It was 5th beaten 7 that day. We know finished in front of Slow Down Andy in that race, who came back to win at Sunland. Was decent behind Tiz the Bomb. I'm just not sold on this horse at 5-2 as the potential favorite in this race. So 5-2, probably not. Odds float up a little bit. Might start thinking, a little more playable for me.
A little more of a defensive use with that one. Philip, let's bring you back in for your thought on the Lexington.
Yeah, so this one, obviously, we own a piece of In Due Time. So, just I'll just be singling him where I'm too invested to wish I could get out of some creative thing. But I just think ultimately, like, we looked at all the different Derby preps trying to figure out what we're going to do, and really what Kelly wanted to do, which is the way we manage the horses. We try to have a conversation with the trainer, but ultimately it's the trainer's decision. We felt like, hey, we've asked a lot of him. He won his allowance first start at 2 turn or at a flat mile. We asked him to go 2 turns against graded stake horses. Ran a huge second. Was loaded. I had actually text Pete, I think, after the race or the day after, when Twitter is like, going crazy. And I think ultimately, what kept us from being DQ'd was the fact that there was no really good conclusive video angle on the turn. And what I would say is, because there was no conclusive angle, it looked like there was bumping that happened before. Now, Paco probably definitely came out, and if he doesn't come out, maybe there's no clipping in heels. But it was incredibly tight way before Paco came out, and it was probably just the brick that broke the camel's back on top. So, but he's doing really good. I think ultimately we've talked about, do we switch? What do we do? Ultimately, what Kelly thinks is this horse is just a strong, aggressive horse, and he's like, Paco just gets him to relax. Like his final work, we were going to go 5/8, and then the track sealed. We have to call an audible. We're just going to work an easy half mile, and this horse gets plenty out of his training. So really, we're trying to keep the powder in the keg. We're just trying, don't get to race day, don't let him do too much. And, right as soon as we break off of the half mile pole, we get unexpected company, a horse that's breezing 3/8 pops right in front of us. And this Paco just had him relaxed the whole way, never pulled, never tried. Like it was slow, but it was exactly what we wanted. Like we'd much rather have had a slow work where he's just relaxed, calm, but he's doing really good. To me, he's just way the horse to beat in here. I think Tawny Port, his dirt race actually isn't that bad, and it looks a lot better when you look at how everything's run out of there. In general, I just don't like – this feels like an afterthought, right? Like he's got enough points to get in the Derby. They're like, well, you know what? Maybe we'll just run here and see if he really likes it, to see if we want to go to the Derby, which then I would just ask the question, like, if he does like it, then you're going to have, 3 races in, a handful of weeks. It's just a weird thing. So in general, I just fade horses like that. But I thought Strava was somewhat interesting. I also think like Howling Time to me was intriguing at what could be a big number. He was a good 2-year-old. I'm not, I say I wouldn't bet Del Romans a lot of times with other people's money, especially down at Gulfstream, but he did win one at Keeneland. I think when his horses come up from South Florida, they definitely improve. This horse acted like he could be really good. And it's weird for me. Like you look down there and it's just like, bullet work. Bullet, I mean, it's like 58 and change, just all these incredibly fast works. If I wanted to get creative, I think he at least is going to get the right trip. Like, I kind of like to call me Midnight. I just think he might be way too far back on a, track that isn't going to favor that style. But for me, it's just single in due time. And I'll be selfishly cheering him on Saturday.
I ran into Kelly yesterday over at Keeneland, and he was a sponsor of our Gulfstream Park show. So this is an inside joke.
Okay.
Who listened to that? He said, "Hey, Pistol Pete," when he saw me, which made me laugh. But yeah, I mean, you have In Due Time makes a ton of sense. All the horses you mentioned, it's such an open race. Ultimately, I did some picks over for attheraces.com for the Keeneland cards and Aqueduct cards on Saturday. If folks want to get into those, I took a little shot with Major General, hoping that the morning line is lower than the price he's going to be coming off the debacle in the Tampa Bay Derby. And this was a horse that looked very interesting as a 2-year-old. And if you key off the Iroquois effort and build in improvement for age and basically just ignore the Tampa Bay Derby, saying, well, Pletcher decided he wants to persist with the horse. They're adding blinkers. Maybe he's going to be a lot better today. Just a guess from me. This is a tricky and interesting race, but obviously, Philip, we wish you Godspeed with In Due Time in this one. Be a fun thing.
Yeah, thanks.
If you can get that.
It's weird. We normally only have fillies, so it's kind of a weird. We had some guys in our group that are like, hey, if we ever found a colt, we love a colt. And then we saw this and we're like, hey, you know what? This could be the right deal. We at Edge is a group of my racehorse. We have an existing relationship with them. We own going to Vegas with them. We own with Street Band with them. So we're just kind of able to work out a deal that made sense for everybody. So some of our guys got in. So it's it'll be fun. It's a weird deal. Normally I'm like, trying to get ready for the Oaks or get ready for some of the big stakes. And this is a whole different, everybody's of course now is like, well, it's just really easy to get Derby tickets if we make it. Like, I'm like, it's not easy and it's not cheap. So they're like, well, Churchill just gives. I was like, no, they give you 18 per horse. And you just wanted to bring 18 of your buddies. So it's not quite that easy.
All right, we just have a few minutes left in this segment of the show, and we don't want to give short shrift to the Grade 1 Jenny Wiley short field, interesting race, 1.16 on the Keeneland turf for these fillies and mares. My opinion was that Shantasara might just be breathing different air than the rest of this field, but there's obviously other ways of taking a look at it. Eric, we're going to throw the ball back in your court to get your idea of what's going to win the Jenny Wiley.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same boat there. Her race in the QE2 Cup in October was sensational. Just you think about the litany of horses like this that Chad Brown has trained over the last several years, and she fits that mold for sure. To me, I think she could be worth singling here. I will back up with the other Chad Brown, Regal Glory, who obviously is a very nice 6-year-old mare. Started to really run some of her better races last year. I thought, her race in the First Lady was really good, losing narrowly to her stablemate who took him gate to wire that day. 2 straight wins, Grade 1 Matriarch, Pegasus World Cup Turf filly race. She certainly looked like the best in that race on paper and certainly acted like that on the track. I just think her stablemate might be a little bit better, though.
Philip, what do you think about this one?
In general, I don't like being in this situation because I can't really split them. I think Shantasara might end up being better, but I think she actually might want a little longer or be better going a little longer. And I think that's kind of the thing that is holding me back from wanting to single. In general, in races like this, I would just want to have an opinion and really press one of the two and just figure that's how I can create value as opposed to just equal weighting on both, and which is what the vast majority of tickets are going to do. But in this case, like, I came into the draw without diving into the PPs and watching the races, and I was like, Regal Glory is going to be a single. I just think the distance is better. I think they both have good tactical speed. But I thought the way she won the Pegasus World Cup, she was a deserved favorite. It was not as strong as this race. But just not the way she did it. Showed kind of a different style and a really good turn of foot. And I wanted to single her, but I think really I'll probably end up just equal weighting them and moving on. And I think that the the more I went back and watched Chantisara's races, the more I liked her. I think ultimately she might want a little bit farther, and maybe I'll 60-40 it or something like that, just to Regal Glory. But I couldn't split them.
Let's move on to the nightcap race number 11. We're in the allowance ranks, going 7 furlongs on the dirt with this field of 11. Philip, will ask you the key question: how are we going to get paid?
I mean, I just laugh at these races at Keeneland. I mean, it's just you get all these, you get just monster after monster after monster. I mean, to me, Highly Motivated is hands down the horse to beat. And I'll tell you, the other reason I couldn't get off, I was equal weighting him is I was telling everybody before the meet, I'm like, listen, just Pratt is coming in and he is going to school a lot of these jockeys. He's very, very, very good. And I made a fortune opening weekend. I remember there was a optional claimer 80, and there was a half sister to Into Mischief that Cox had that Giroux rode, and he had another thing for Ike Thrash that had won like 3 races when Pratt was on. And you thought that one was going to go to the lead and the half Into Mischief was going to rally, and it ended up being the reverse. But Pratt is just riding at a whole nother level. So this is a very tough race. This horse is coming off of a big layoff, but he is very talented, and I think he's going to fire fresh. And I don't want to spend a lot of money trying to beat. He's the horse in here that feels like he could be a Grade 1 horse later this year. So to me, he was the one. I mean, I think if this horse ran really well, maybe you wouldn't go to the Met Mile just because it's so tough. You go to like the True North or something Belmont Week. But to me, that he's this kind of horse. He feels like the one that has the most upside. You're not getting a great price. You're taking a layoff, all those things. But I just think Pratt will put him in the right spot.
Hard to imagine Chad Brown bringing him back short at a meet like this. I'm sure this is a stepping stone to other things, but you'd think he'd be pretty darn close to fully formed. Eric, is it as simple as Highly Motivated in the last?
I think so. I think that's my top pick. I agree with everything Philip said. I really like this horse last year. Win on Breeders' Cup weekend in 2020 was sensational. A little bit of a tough go in the Gotham, but I thought the Bluegrass was sensational. Pushing Essential Quality to the absolute max in that race. Obviously, the Derby didn't go well, but I thought this was a horse that was going to win. I thought he would be, a really good horse for a race like the Allen Jerkins at 7 furlongs at Saratoga. Obviously, that didn't work out. But I'm really excited to see this horse come back. And I also, again, I feel bad for some of the other horses in this race because this is the second division of the first race in the sequence. So
that was a brutal.
And I mean, I'm looking. There's horses in here that aren't going to be on my ticket that I probably would have put on the A line if they were in the 7th race. Looking at Super and Sandwich, I would probably put. I might have made him the top pick if in the 7th race. I think Chocolate Bar is a nice horse. I'm not going to be using him, but I think I would definitely use him in the 7th if he was in that group. The other horse I'm going to use here is Ducali on the A line. Another horse that I just really liked. I thought that maiden win at Saratoga at the beginning of the meet last year was sensational. We came back at the end of the meet and was in that crazy non-winners of one allowance race where Baby Yoda ran his eyeballs out and put up that monster figure. And even though he hasn't run back to that number, I think that race holds up because Olympiad was second in that race, and that horse has come back and run some really nice races this year. Tried 2 turns, was a winner here. Probably going to be better at 1 turn, but handled going the 1 mile here last year. And I thought the race with Cody's Wish at the 1 turn mile to end his 3-year-old campaign was solid as well. I'm not sure he's the same caliber as Highly Motivated, but if Highly Motivated is a little bit short, I think he'd be the one to get the job done. I'm probably going to offer a little more value, so I'm going to put that one in there. Maybe on deeper tickets, maybe a little look at Escape Route coming in from California. Did like his 7 furlong race back a couple, 4 or 5 starts back, maybe at Santa Anita. Been going 6 furlongs, might be able to close a little bit here. But to me, he's more of an underneath horse.
All right, great stuff. We're going to let you guys go, but really appreciate your time and contributions. Eric, we're going to be seeing more about you, your blanket coverage of the Keeneland meet over at InTheMoneyPodcast.com, special contributions to the Triple Crown Trail. And Philip, of course, you're going to be, as we mentioned up top, part of our May 4th Derby event once again, and with us all summer long, coming on periodically, doing some capping and keeping us aware of your opinions in those filly and mare divisions in which you've had such excellent opinions for the listeners and viewers over the years. We'll be talking soon, team.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Good
Thank
luck
you
to
very
everybody
much.
on Saturday.
Just me.